pleasure to invite the next speaker, Professor Nitin Vyas, to speak on the holistic science of life of Dada Bhagwan. Over to Professor Vyas.
Esteemed chairperson of today's sessions, my co-speakers, and all delegates for Indian Philosophical Congress and Asian Philosophical Congress who are present here. At the same time, His Holiness, most honored Sri Kanu Dadaji, and the devotees and followers of Dadaji's thought. Today I am privileged. Why? Because I was not one to give this first endowment lecture. And this is the first endowment lecture which has been graced, I would say, by Dadaji. Why? Professor J.M. Dave was to speak, but he preferred some other subject, and last month I was asked, would you be ready? The paper was there, and I said yes. This is one aspect, but this privilege has other things also from philosophical angles. Let me tell you, I was way back in close contact with Dadaji's most intimate friend, for whom he had a great regard, Sri Ranchhodbhai Patel. And he was writing this book in Gujarati, Dada Bhagwan no Tatvagnan. By the way, we have to understand, Sri Ranchhodbhai was not a commoner. He was MA in philosophy from Bombay University then. He was in the same year born along with Dadaji, 1908. And he was MA in philosophy way back. He studied at Santiniketan. He studied at Cantab, UK. And after writing, because we used to meet together, why? No other reason. His office was next window to my window of residence. And we began our friendship. That is something from that angle. I was very, very young. And he always used to talk philosophy with me because he was not in philosophy at all at that time, but though he studied. Number one, after finishing the book, he asked me, Nitin, you are studying in philosophy department. Why don't you get me a preface by a philosopher? Professor Javadekar was our head. And why don't you approach him and have his preface for the book? I was also I joined for the research then, and a romantic beginning in philosophical world. Whether he would agree or not, I did not know, but I told him. Then he also thought, yeah, has he written a book? Yeah, I said. Then one professor also keeps on talking me of Dada Bhagwan. He was a professor of commerce faculty, and he used to meet him sometimes, and he used to, okay, then you bring the manuscript, I would read, and I would give the preface. And this is how the preface for the book also was obtained by no less a person who was also once the president of Indian Philosophical Congress, and he was also in the executive body of IPC for many, many years. So this is how the preface also for the book was there. See, coming of Dadaji, how a distinct contribution in philosophy. Forget about any other things we have, but from our angle or a philosophical angle, what is the significance? A little, 1 minute only, then I will go to my paper. I know I have to finish before Madam rises from her seat. But why? The place of him. Because he comes from one Vaishnava tradition. See, Mahatma Gandhi also came from Vaishnava tradition. And he had his guru, Srimad Rajchandra, having that great impact of Jain literature and Jain thinking. Even Dadaji had a great impact by Srimad Rajchandra, born as a Vaishnava, having that impact? See, we know between the lines, a person from orthodox schools of heritage going to heterodox schools of thinking. From there, he tries to synthesize that tradition of thinking conjoining with the orthodox tradition. Generally, what we find the contemporary thinkers in philosophy, theistic based, from a personalistic angle, saguna aspect of thinking, or impersonal aspect of thinking, nirguna ideas. Most of the contemporary thinkers, we find that philosophies have developed from that angle. Or there are also very strong and daredevils taking Charvak. Professor Bhatt referred that we have also the tradition of materialistic philosophers who have taken cues from that philosophy as well. But we hardly take note of those who have converged the orthodox and heterodox schools of thought and taking cues, the realistic approach in philosophy, the rationalistic approach of philosophy from Sankhya, and trying to attune with the Vedic idealism. See, these are the things that we find the advent of Dadaji's amongst us. He is known as Dada Bhagwan respectfully, and now we will refer as Dadaji, 1908-88. His unique contribution to the Indian philosophical thinking, earlier known as Ambalal M. Patel, a typical Gujarati householder pursuing business profession. His education also was very meager. He did not have any formal learning in philosophy, neither did he, he was expert in using those philosophical concepts in which we are trained from Vaishnava tradition. He imbibed the literary impact of Jainism from Srimad Rajchandra. From young age, he studied various scriptures in Jainism and Hinduism, having had an open and liberal outlook of life. The basic Indian approach, very liberal. His expressions of various traditions of Jainism, Vaishnavism, Shaivite tradition, etc. But what he basically aimed, see, the ordinary person mixing with commoners. I have seen him because Ranchhodbhai took me thrice to him from far. Let me tell you, I am very frank. I listened to others talking to him, but I did not have courage because even my nature is very secluded type from thence also, and I talk publicly even then at a very, I wish to listen. I have seen him twice listening at Ahmedabad Airport, and once you will surprise. He took me, chalo, there is a function today, what? I saw him in a buggy. Procession was taken. All crackers and bands were also there. And Dadaji, as if nothing outside, he was sitting. He did not care, but he was sitting, and Ranchhodbhai took me to that incident also. So, what he aimed in living an all-comprehensive positive way of life. Positive way of life. It is a realistic way. He lived for a blissful and full of joy all through his being. According to Sri Dadaji, what man finds in this world, the classes, because man is confused and enmeshed in two ways everywhere. All men. One consists in the realm of relative truths, we all know, and the other is belonging to the realm of the nature of reality. What is the reality that I have to live for? These two realms make a continuity of class and chaos in human life as if ceaselessly. This is a stark reality of life, and what we need to face it squarely vis-a-vis the context of pure spiritual and blissful state of man's consciousness. For Dadaji, this requires freeing oneself. In a very ordinary way, he speaks to a commoner what Indian thinking has been preached for centuries, requires freeing oneself of all preconceived notions and beliefs, fanaticism, and conditional desires of any type. For him, how to have this process of knowing oneself is a matter of experience. It is not merely a rational approach. It is a matter of experience as a spiritual aspirant. It is a matter of grace at the same time, endowed by an awakened, holistic scientist or a guru, one who has known the world outside fully, the circumstantial, the situations in which we are born, and he knows what it is. This holistic path is a harmonizing path between the relative and the real, the fleeting and the quest for the eternal being, by so indicating a basic direction of all conflicting issues grappling man all over. He focuses in perceiving and understanding the scientific circumstantial evidences constantly in our life and controlling and regulating the functioning of the world, the Vyavastha Shakti Sri Kanudadaji referred in his last dialogue day before yesterday evening. So, as against the fleeting and unreal aspects, it is this consciousness which further forms the real identity of man. And it requires to be known and realized as the essential purpose of human life. This path thus is traversing through all the relativities of the world, not to escape the world, to face the world, to pass through it, and there is a revealing of the spiritual awakening of the self. It is an integral and holistic path of Vitaraga, passing through this world and how to live the way that he gives the ethical aspect. It is the path of Vitaraga, of purity and perfection in life. Sri Dadaji is the propounder of this holistic and integral philosophical approach in life. He had, where did he realize? You will surprise. All of you have, many of you have passed through Surat railway station. You have come. It is there on the bench in 1958. All of a sudden, he had that vision and he began to remain stable in that vision since then and continued in his way of discussions with the world outside. So, the converging mind since then, beginning, he clarifies and evolves this theoretical understanding in the background of some important ideas of the schools of Indian philosophical doctrine. For example, how he is harmonizing and how he is holistic. In the Vitaraga Darshan of Sri Dadaji, the nature of the human self is the God or Brahman a la Advait Vedanta. See, again, from that language, he talks about Advait Vedanta. At the same time, he admits a pluralistic nature of existence of this nature of self, and thus granting plurality of gods in pristine purity as well. All of us are, we have to seek, all of us have to seek this way of the God. We are all plural. In our each of our life, we have to seek it. However, this plurality meant in practical context only and not in transcendental sense. Everything is thus godly in higher supreme self-realization. In other words, instead of hair splitting dry discussions of philosophy in academic language and concepts. As I told you, he did not have that. His vision and life indeed reflects a practical sense of living. He is a pakka businessman, Gujarati. Now, if you do not have an immediate value of life from that thinking, what is its meaning? So, sense of living the truth, indeed, in essential Indian perspective as such. His presentation is a contemporary thinking in which one could see, because we all of us have life, that the mistaken self that we have, our psycho-social existence, how do we live with this consciousness with our world? And we all of us know that what kind of identity we are carrying on with us. So, he sees nothing wrong. See, he sees nothing wrong with this world's nature or worldly life, except one's own understanding of it and dependency that one has created due to it. It means that the fruit of this bonding lies with the suffering man himself. Examine yourself where you are suffering. What is even Professor Gautam referred to finitehood, that Dayaji also referred, what is this finitehood? Each one of us suffers from that. So experiencing this freedom from suffering is possible when a person is blessed by a realized soul, Gnani Purusha. One should be a Gnani one, and it is he only can help us. It is in a neutral way of judging of oneself, in realizing one's real self and one's true identity. Sri Dadaji has such an rapporting with the commoners gathering in a direct dialogical way. This context of dialogues, he always used to be with people. Different kinds of people, different followings used to daily gather, and he would directly talk on the issues of philosophy and linking and guiding for real understanding. He personified as a converging spirit of varieties of ideal in context of Indian philosophical perspectives. He is symbolizing Keval Gnani of Jain Darsana, experiencing the supreme states of Vedantic thinking in Hinduism, and at the same time mirroring unpredictable, because every moment he used to live, and hence mirroring unpredictable spontaneity. His spontaneity cannot be described. You cannot predict him. Kanu Dadaji is here, their direct darsanas, they have some of them along with him, and they will also testify that very unpredictable in that sense in the day-to-day practical living. For while he lived, he aimed at his conscious spiritual realization along with gradual exhausting of the effects of the inherited duties and worldly actions as stored from the past. He would not escape the world. He would live whatever. There have been many conflicts and suffering. He also must have. But along with it, how to be at blissful state of consciousness. That is, Dadaji's vision has been ever broad, awakening outlook from 1958, and ever total freedom, remaining always open and accessible, dialogues, through his dialogues, making clarifications to varieties of groups of elites and commoners. Very fragile figure. You would not see that he is Dada Bhagwan sitting in appearance. His simplicity and straightforwardness has left a considerable following amongst elites at large in Gujarat and Baroda as well. Apparently, his life adjusted with all worldly, hectic and bustling practical existence around him. He was basically at peace and blissful with himself, adorned with caps, coat and boots, while in communion with people at large. The following would vie to touch his feet, honoring him. You are living with Ragi. You are living with Ragi, and his asceticism and transcending personality in midst of all worldly conditions, his remaining shame, as always, without anyone could claim of owning him in any clear-cut and watertight identity. He personified in himself a living example of perfection at par excellence and pinpointing imperfections in those who judged him at once. So, his transforming vision with constant intuitive and spiritual communion, he lived beyond normal physico-mental awareness. It is only a humble striving here in convening, yeah, madam. See, I will just summarize what his life, he always emphasized on primacy of spirit. His philosophy is interpreted rationally in varieties of ways because, as I told you, he is not only monistic, he is pluralistic and multidimensional approach of life as well. And while conducting oneself spiritually, it is more of an external covering in because the world outside is a mechanized world, the kasaya, and how we have to be out. He calls for spontaneous way of realizing in direct communion. It is known his way as unscheduled because he always used to live from the consciousness in the center. From all his behavior, it is known as akram marg. The kramic marg is the word outside, but it is when a consciousness centered, when the primacy of the consciousness is there, it is known as akram marg. His books that were collected were known as Seven Aptavani. The 7 works are there, Aptavani, dialogues which have been written and edited and re-edited and published. And Ranchulbhai also had from these books and is listening to his dialogues, he had this book. He always uses a relative language of Syadvadin, an ascetic and Vitragi who is owned by the people of various faiths and world over. So, it is free from all sectarian knots of apparently practical beliefs and adjustment. From Sankhya, also a large portion of his thinking is derived in his life and what the nature of the world outside and how to remain non-attached. Because along with Jaina's thinking, the Sankhya also has deeply thought about this realistic world outside, and he also gives himself that greater understanding from it. What I mean to say that he combined various aspects of our philosophy from Hinduism, from Buddhism, from Jainism is to be understood between the lines in the sense that he was mainly so much centered on the spiritual aspect of life. Whether one agrees or not with his thought, but one thing is certain that he impressed, his impression was an everlasting one, and agreement or disagreement in philosophy may be there, but no one disagreed with the life that he lived, and this is how the continuity of the inspiration of the great man has been with us till now, and it will remain forever in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vyas, for bringing forth a concise version of the philosophy, the holistic philosophy of Dada Bhagwan, which is indeed a synthetic molding of the relativity preached in Jainism and the absolutism in Advaita and Vaishnavism. Now, I could squeeze in precisely 2 minutes for the question answer session. I suppose we can have 2 questions. Are there any questions? Yes? Vinayji.
This question is to Professor S.P. Gautam. One doubt arose when you spoke of estranged wife. If Dayakrishna were to live today, would he say that his later works are going to be now estranged wives?
Can we collect the next question also and then answer? Yes.
Namaskar to all. My question, request to Professor Vyas, joining with our institute, with the blessings of Kanwai Patel, please produce a document film on Dadaji. If it is there, one day you can telecast it for us with all the documents, live message and work, how this institution is functioning. All these things can be given in a film form. It will be more informative. Thank you.
Can I ask another?
Please be very precise. Yeah, you can.
Thank you. Actually, it's not a question, but something to know from Professor Jatasankar, that from his speech regarding Krishnamurti, Professor J. Krishnamurti. So Krishnamurti, why he has not accepted the views of Mimamsakas? Because Mimamsa is a Shastra, and the 6 Indian philosophies that we accept. So what is the reason behind it? I just want to know it from you. Thank you.
So, do I have your?
Yes, Siraj.
My not question, little queries to Professor Gautam. Thank you very much for giving some indication about the democratic outlook of Dayakrishna ji. But the notion of Professor Dayakrishnan, is it a new aspect of democracy, or is it an alienation from the practical democracy which are practiced in the today's world? That's
Okay. I think.
No.
Professor Gautam, I share some of my experiences which he has already told in his speech about Dayaji. Once he was in Kashi, Varanasi, and in an institute, not in the university, surrounded by certain students, and I thought that as a teacher, should I go there or not? Then I tried to become aloof, and I wanted to watch how does he express with the students. Then he said, I'm not going to speak anything, you speak, you ask the questions. So this is the simplest statements which I wanted to make, and I wanted to congratulate SP Gautam. Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, let me say that when one is, asked to summarize things in 15 to 20 minutes, the context itself gets abstracted and decontextualized. Dayaji had given lectures on, and these are published lectures, about, 3 misconceptions about Indian philosophy in our department. He was, talking about his return to or his engagement with Indian philosophy, and the book which I was asking about was something he had not talked about. So that is, a witty way of speaking, and I was highlighting basically through that remark that Dayaji tried to participate in the democratic world of the universal global philosophical community, in which he was ignored, neglected, because he had come from not the Western but the non-Western world. And I think one has to understand that return not as if something he had been doing earlier. That's why I say that please read his PhD thesis, Nature of Philosophy, which actually begins with the talk of the Vedic sages concerned with self-knowledge and the nature of the universe. So the point was that in a witty comment that let's not talk about that book. I am now interested in something else. And as far as his wife was concerned, he was never estranged with her. So let us be clear about that. And important thing which I would like to say in response to that question is that Dayaji wanted us to engage with our tradition not as its echoes, not as its reiterators, but a critical engagement, and to see that the discrepancies which are there in the ways of thinking, in the modes of thinking, they need to be highlighted. And I would submit again that the wonder that Dayaji was, I had many disagreements with him, both in practice, in theory. In fact, he delivered a lecture later on, Professor Premnath Memorial Lecture, which he published as Revolutionary Interpretation. And I published a counter reply to him, Krantikari Karam ke Auchitya. So that is the spirit, you know, in which he would encourage younger students. And I would say we as teachers of philosophy can learn from him that let us be a community of equal thinkers, of, you see, able to posit an altar and respect that altar for the possible illumination it can give to our point of view, assuming clearly and always that whatever I am saying may be definite, may be clear, may be specific, and these would be good qualities, but never absolute and ultimate. With these words, I would like to pay my homage to Dayaji again. Thank you so much for having taken interest in my lecture.
My friend has asked a clarification regarding why. First of all, the clarification is, it is not case, it is on K. Satchidanand Murthy and not Krishna Murthy. Let us not confuse. This paper is on K. S. Murthy, Professor K. Satchidanand Murthy. Why he has not taken the side with Mimamsa and why with Nyaya? He has developed his own arguments, that when he says that for a revelation there must be some revealer. Unless there is some revealer, how is revelation possible? And he has also given an argument in favor of Vedantins when he says that a Vedantin may say that Rishayo mantra drashtarah, every time rishis experience these mantras, and since this Srishti is eternal, circular and eternal, in this sense this Shastra can be eternal. Otherwise it is created in every creation. Once the creation starts, this is revealed by somebody, and since it is eternal, therefore it may be eternal in that sense. This is how he has developed his argument, but unfortunately I could not do justice with this paper, I know. Thank you.
Thus we are coming to the close of the session. I really enjoyed all the 4 papers. My only disappointment is that I could not draw the young voices to the mainstream, and probably they would come up further in the forthcoming sessions. With this, I close the session and I thank all the paper presenters and the patient listening that has come forth from the audience. Thank you, and over to Professor Paneerselvam.
Friends, we will close this session, and now the chairperson and the speakers will be honored with a bouquet. Professor Shikala.
And at this time, excuse me, at this time, on behalf of, I think we will all agree, a very keen listening crowd and audience today, we want to thank all the one-verse scholars on the stage for the second day of the IPC. At this point, I also want to introduce someone here, Shri Gunvanbhai Patel. He's here on the left. He has been on this great mandir and campus you see here, that you have been here last 5 days. He has given 20 years of his life in the operations and management of the mandir and campus here. So we want to first, I want to give our appreciation to Gunvanbhai here, Gunvanbhai Patel. And he will now give the mementos. Professor and Chair Nair, we really appreciate everything you've done here this morning. Next.
Yeah. Next, Professor Dave will be honored with a bouquet. Come quick. Yeah, please, sir. Now Professor Jada Shankarji will be honored by a bouquet and a memento. Please come quick. That's true. Then we'll honor our good friend Professor S.P. Gautam ji. I don't know why they take so much time. Then Professor Nitin Vyas ji would be honored. Thank you very much. I thank the chairperson, Professor Srikala Nair, for conducting the session so well, and also we thank all the speakers for their excellent presentation.